Warning. The following scenes may contain references to power pages and portals which some listeners may find disturbing, especially if you've struggled with poor training in the past. Hey all, Franco Musso here. Yes, I've hacked your podcast feed. I've held John and Mike hostage, but don't worry, I got my wires crossed and I'm actually paying them a small ransom in the form of sponsorship. Go figure. So, by popular demand, I'm cooking up 2 brand new offerings to help you get your portal projects off the ground in 2024. The first is my group coaching program launching in March. Join me and a cohort of other budding portal makers for live coaching sessions, weekly live training, office hours, Q&A and surgeries. I'll guide you through the process from zero to launch, all at a fraction of the cost of hiring a freelancer or a contractor. It's like having a trusted partner on hand, helping you avoid the pitfalls, saving you a ton of money, headache and time. Plus, you're bound to learn lots from others in the group as we discuss their experiences, challenges and solutions. To apply, head on over to francomusso.com/group-coaching. You can now take your fingers out of your ears and enjoy the awesome that is Sprint Zero.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sprint Zero podcast. My name is Mike Gowland and I'm here with my co-partner rat in crime, John Russell. Say hello, John.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm trying and keep a cat out of my room because
I have a thing called a door that normally sorts that out.
Yes.
Today we are joined by Keith Atherton. Keith is a solution architect at ANS. He is a regular podcaster himself on the On There in the Cloud podcast, as well as the co-chair of the Scottish Power Platform User Group. Keith has a background in game development and ran his own company for a short period of time, and is one of those pro-code types that is converted to the dark side of low-code, although I'm not sure that's actually the case. Keith, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, guys. It's an honour to be here. I'm a big fan of your podcast. So, thanks for having me on.
And we're a big fan of yours, and we are also repaying the favour of being guests on There in the Cloud as well.
Oh, too kind. It's great to be here.
Nice one, man. How's your day going? How's your day going today? All right?
Yeah, pretty good. Actually, dealing with your good selves at ANS as well. A few things here and there. A few projects in the works. Some interesting work. So, yeah, day's going well, thanks. How about yourselves?
Nice. Yeah, all right. Not too bad. Pretty good. Trying to get to grips with Canvas apps. Yes, I am trying it. Trying it.
Has hell frozen over?
It's
Yes.
one of those signs of the
Hold on,
apocalypse.
there's a pig flying. Hold on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like 3 horsemen and John does Canvas apps. I think, one of the signs.
That's never going to be the case. That's never going to be the case. Keith, we said in the intro that you've got a bit of background in game development, which kind of involves pro code. So, what made you jump to low code? Or maybe jump is the wrong word. Maybe you're more hybrid, I think. But what kind of enticed you into low code?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really happened the last few years when I first started using low code and being a pro coder or custom coder for many years. It was one of those that you built so many things from the ground up. You had full control pretty much over the code, or you could use frameworks. And really, you had the blank canvas anyway. So moving to Canvas apps at some point was a way of kind of translating that. And my first thought when I was seeing Power FX and a few other things was, okay, how deep can I go with the code side of things here? Am I going to be limited? So that was my first knee-jerk reaction internally. But then when I learned a bit more and realized you can extend things, you can use pro code where you need. You can use, JavaScript as a web resource in a model-driven. You can write PCFs and plugins when they're required. I realized, okay, no, there's no barriers here. I can do more than I want to. But I think one of the biggest drivers for me taking to it so much, because a lot of the community work I used to do was pro code in Azure originally. That's really what I started with 2 or 3 years ago, was that I could get things in customer hands much quicker with a lot of low-code tools. And at the end of the day, being a consultant, helping people and fixing problems or solving things, that was the main aim. It meant that I could still rely on the pro code if I really needed it, but being able to get prototypes, MVPs, things in people's hands much, much quicker, it just had a massive appeal. So that's what that drove the passion for me, I would say.
And that's a big driver, I think, for a lot of companies when they realise the kind of reduction in cost, the time to value, and what they can get out of a product quite quickly. Do you think there's a little bit of a disconnect between what potential clients see as a finished product and their concept of what MVP or most viable product is?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there can be. The interesting thing when I was working on Pro Code predominantly, as you guys put it well, I'm kind of hybrid at the moment, but more, I've kind of doubled down on the low code, particularly Power Platform. Where in my last role, I was truly hybrid. So I was jumping between lots of .NET projects and then Azure, so lots of cloud-based things. There was still some on-prem, or for some customers that was current, or it was legacy, and then low code. So I was jumping between maybe three stacks there. The idea of this new role for me is one of the appeals is, apart from working with your good selves and many other great people, genuinely and interesting projects, was doubling down on the Power Platform so it could afford me to spend more of my time and not spreading myself too thin between so many stacks. But yeah, when you mentioned there, like, getting an MVP or a POC in a customer's hands, I found with the Pro Code, often I would use wireframing tools like Balsamic, or you use Lucid, or even PowerPoint and things, and it would often look very, very different from that final product. So there was always some kind of a disconnect to an extent. But I found that when I was writing, model-driven or Canvas apps, if you could knock something up quickly in the UI, you can have something that can closely look what the final product would be in a very short period of time. Now, I've actually heard arguments both sides of this as well. Some people said, well, we kind of don't want it to look too finished and polished. We kind of just want like a quick sketch. This is what it could look like. But I do find many customers do resonate with, oh, so this is where the button will be. Right? Oh, it'll use this. You were showing me earlier, John, in a canvas, different colors for different buttons or different time periods being elapsed. Oh, this is what it'll look like. Close to this. And there's a big appeal in that, I think.
And I think there's also an element of the client actually needs to visually see what a Canvas app looks like or what a model-driven app looks like, because they might not have actually seen one before.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that can either be at the pre-sales, or we could flesh that out in the Sprint Zero, reference,
Nice pun.
Yeah, totally intended, obviously. As you say, then you've got something a bit more tangible and to look at for the customer's point of view. And I can find that can actually help with adoption or a bit of buy-in sometimes as well.
So Keith, do you still get involved with game development in your spare time, or have we got another side hustle that we don't know about?
Well, in terms of the game development, I would like to make more time for it. It's since gone in the hobby box since, it started off as a hobby, did it for a few years, and then I actually set up a company just to protect the IP of it, really. That was the main thing. It wasn't going to overtake the day job. It was just a side thing, but that limited company was a way of just protecting it in case there was a lot of cloning going on at that time, particularly with casual and mobile games. So I thought this will protect a bit against that. It's not intended as a big money maker, but I'll set it up as a legal entity and do it the right way. In the end, it actually did get some funding, became a thing, got a few tens of thousands of downloads, and it kind of became a modest success. It did okay. But it's something that went back into the hobby box. So right now, I don't spend much time on game development. I still love doing it, but it's such a big time investment, particularly if you're like me, you want to do the design, coding, the art, the music. You want to do everything. So yeah, maybe I should spend more time on it, but maybe do more collaboration. Get a decent artist instead of me winging it.
I tell you what, it was only a few weeks ago that I remembered that this existed, and I think probably for you and me, Keith, because I did nowhere near to the level you did, but I did do a little bit of game development a few years ago as well. And this is a product I remember from the 90s, and I think it needs to make a comeback.
Oh yeah, that rings a bell.
Do you remember this?
The Games Factory, yes.
The Games Factory by Europress. It was Windows 95. It was a low-code game development platform.
Brilliant. I love that. I've seen things along the lines of a low-code game builder like RPG Maker or RPG Builder and things like this as well. As you say, you've got the assets ready to go. You might have some kind of visual flow of how the decision trees are made and things. But yeah, no, love that. I remember the first game development I did was using Shockwave Flash, doing Flash games.
Yeah.
So there's a blast from the past.
But I tell you what, it was like late 90s, early 2000s. They were so popular. They were everywhere, weren't they?
They were.
They had sites like Miniclip.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
What was the other one?
Congregate.
Battlegrounds something.
Oh yeah, Battlegrounds. Yeah, and there was Congregate with a K as well, which was quite popular. So yeah, after a while doing the Flash games, I moved into using I was looking at things like Unreal and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Unity was what I was blanking on there. Yeah, I moved to Unity. One of the main reasons for that was you could use C# with it, and that's what I was using in the day job. So it's kind of a big transferable skill for me to move to that.
I think that's where, taking a little bit of a tangent into AI and open AI realm, but did you see the announcement about Sora this week?
Yes, I did. I posted something. Chris Huntingford actually mentioned this wild dream he'd had involving a shark and a battle the other day. And I was like, we need to use Sora to visualize this.
I don't know if we do. I'm not sure about that. We'll probably break it.
Might get PTSD or something. But
but they're, I mean, it looks like they could get to like kind of real world simulations for stuff, and I think it looks like they'll probably start doing something with Unreal Engine 5. It's very interesting space, that.
It is. The thought you can just put some text and it will create a realistic video from it. I mean, it's the future's now, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it does look like some of the videos I've seen. A couple of them looked a little bit dodgy, but then the one where it's like a camera panning into a couple that are walking in like Japan somewhere with the cherry blossom. That was very good.
It's almost something you could imagine a young filmmaker as someone saying, right, we need this crew, we need all these lighting rigs, we need to clear the area, get all these extras. You're like, no. An alternative is, or a POC or MVP mock-up. Is to use Sora. It's incredible.
Also, B-roll footage.
Yes, good point.
Yes. People spend a lot of money to get like generic B-roll footage, and actually you could just prompt your own B-roll footage instead.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And I wonder if there's so many of those industries, some of them cottage industries, that when I was in game development more, and you would look for sound effects or background music, and you'd find a few free offerings, some you pay royalties. But if you can generate a lot of these things well using AI, different tools, I wonder if that affects their economy and how they run their side hustles or their businesses.
Definitely.
Just use a prompt instead of hiring someone who spent half a day building, writing that music and performing it. Who knows?
Yeah. All sorts of difficult conversations to be had around that, I think.
I think so. There's so many moving parts, and it's moving so fast as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So Keith, congratulations, by the way, on Air in the Cloud, the podcast that you do. How do you know your co-hosts, Gregor Sutty and Matt Boyd?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's a podcast we started relatively recently too. I think it was last summer we started ours, and we're up to 14 episodes now. We've maybe got 2 in the bank as well that are coming out soon. And the way I know the other co-hosts, so me and Gregor Sutty, or Azure Greg, some people know him. He's an Azure MVP, lovely guy, really smart as well. Me and Azure Greg, there we go. See, it's become synonymous now. Me and Gregor, we live about 20 minutes apart. We both live in Scotland. We're not far. So over the last few years, we've bumped into each other at various events like Scottish Summit, Data Scotland, and a few others as well. So we've kind of bumped into each other. Glasgow Azure User Group as well, which is one that he co-hosts with Sarah Lean. And I've been lucky enough to speak at that user group a couple of times too. So yeah, we've kind of bumped into each other. We just kind of hit it off. Again, initially, I had the interest in Azure before moving to Power Platform more so. So yeah, we kind of collaborated on a few things. I helped with his streaming. He's helped me with various projects. So yeah, one of the ones we talked about for a long time before we started it was a podcast. And Gregor used to work with Matt. Matt fairly recently moved to a new job at Avanade, but they both worked together at Intercept, a company in the Netherlands. So yeah, we kind of got to know each other, all three of us. We just seemed to gel really well. So we just thought we'd go all in together on a podcast.
So how did that first episode go? Did you guys just get together and just think, let's just... when me and John started Sprint Zero, we literally just jumped on the call and just talked about ourselves for about an hour or so. Was it like that, or did you sort of put a script together for it, or was it just completely off the cuff, ad lib, and just see where it took you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I really enjoyed your first consultancy corner, your first episode there, and as you say, find your feet, just get stuck in, and that can work really well for
stay
folks.
on brand.
Yeah,
stay on brand.
Yeah, we're so glad that name didn't stick.
Yeah. I think Sprint Zero works really well. I think that's a good shout, actually. But we did talk about that, and we may have something in the future where we become guests on the show. Each of the hosts, we go through each other's background and history, and we speak more. But we were quite organization heavy at the start. Okay, how do we host a podcast? Matt did a really good job coming up with a logo. What happens next? So we actually did plan it quite thoroughly. What kind of questions we're going to ask, that kind of thing. So yeah, to be honest, we did plan it quite, script like with the questions, but we left room for flexibility and, ad hoc conversations or going off the beaten path. So to be honest, we're pretty well organized. We're still improving on that, I think. But I've got a feeling you guys have got a certain question.
Complete opposite for us. We recorded the episode, then decided we'd start it as a podcast.
Yeah.
And then we made the logo the night before the first episode went live.
It's a great logo, by the way. I love it. Don't ever change,
We got no, we shouldn't. We have toyed with it.
Yeah, we toyed. What about that? The one where I look like Farquhar?
That was brilliant. That AI generated thing.
I love that. We sent that to the team here and asked them to vote on whether they think it was yes or no, and everyone said no.
It's like no. I think one person backed it, and like 8 people said no.
I think that might be me.
It's funny when we started, because we recorded the episode, and then just before we released, we then worked out how much running a podcast was actually going to cost us. And it costs a lot more than you might think.
Yeah, we had chats. So you guys use Riverside. We use StreamYard. We do have one of those tiers, paid for tiers in StreamYard. Similar reasons, it can do that local saving of the recording, uploading it, good quality, and you can do. So it's something Gregor Sutty brought to the team, because he was using it for his own YouTube streaming, where you could hit live. It does the live on YouTube and LinkedIn and other places as well. But yeah, it seems to be working well for us. But as you say, there is a cost, big time cost, and some monetary cost as well. But yeah, it's all part of the fun, eh?
Can you give us any insight onto any guests that you got coming up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple of favourites of mine coming up is one that we've recorded with Scott Giroux, a great guy, really, really, really nice guy who fairly recently joined Microsoft. I know many of you, you guys will be aware of Scott, or you've met Scott. And it's funny because that was a guest. We all bring different guests on board. So the good thing with our team of 3 is that I'm really Power Platform mostly, with some Azure and some .NET. The other guys are mostly Azure and experts in Azure. So we've all got different communities that we draw the guests from. However, for the last, I've kind of maybe railroaded the last few guests because they've pretty much all been Power Platform. So Scott Giroux, Chris Huntingford, that's in the bank. That one's coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
And I've reached out to 2 or 3 others as well. But the great one with Scott, and this goes back to the game development a bit, as you say, Mike, the more you get talking to people, the more you realize you've got in common. So yeah, when me and Scott met in Dublin at the European Power Platform Conference, we got chatting away of like, oh, I like the Lemmings thing you did, Scott. And he's like, oh yeah, I've done some game development too. And what, how did your career start? Oh, I did a physics degree. Oh, me too. The more we talked, the more we had in common. It turns out me and Scott both studied physics degrees in Nottingham at the same time, but for different universities. And then we both done game dev, C#, lots of pro code. Now, architects, both lucky enough to be MVPs as well at different points. So yeah, it's funny. The more you talk, the more you find you've got in common. And I used to live there too. I used to do that too. It's quite funny. Small world.
Yeah, it is a very small world. Yeah.
How do you find it being an MVP? How long have you been an MVP for?
So it's first year for me. I got I was lucky enough to get the award last June. It was an unusual one because I was nominated by someone that's not in the Power Platform circles. It was someone who's a developer tools MVP. I know sometimes the categories go through changes, but she's a wonderful person in the developer tools. I've been an MVP for a few years. And it was off the back of explaining to me what the award was, because I'd only just started to do presentations for user groups. And he says, oh, what else do you do? Went through mentoring and blogging and a few other things. Not that I was doing a super amount at that time. And he said, oh, you may have enough contributions. I can nominate you if you like. I was like, well, probably not going to say no, but let me learn a bit more first. And then, that just kind of naturally happened. A bit of a nice surprise for me. So, since June last year, the renewals are coming up. The next few months. I think one of the big things is the networking, meeting other people in the community, not just MVPs, but people like you guys doing the podcast, people who've probably been nominated or going to get nominated soon for the award or different awards. And it's been great just getting out there and going to user groups, and sometimes strangely people recognizing you, like, oh, I listened to your podcast. And when I met Scott Giroux the first time, I was running a 100 Days of Self-Care hashtag on Twitter at the time, now X. And I was like, I was fanboying. This is Scott Giroux here. And he's, oh, I love that tag you're doing on Twitter. And I thought, he's aware of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Who am I? Okay, sure. Thanks. I think going to the events, networking, meeting people, that's been the big highlight for me, I would say.
Yeah, nice. Scott is a nice guy, isn't he?
He is super intelligent, really nice guy, and he's doing great things at Microsoft right now as well.
He was on our quiz team at South Coast Summit, last
fantastic.
minute entry, and everyone was like, we were all like getting photos with him and stuff. It was great. I asked him to be on the podcast as well. And I kind of started off like a bit sheepishly, like, oh, you might remember us from the quiz. And he's like, oh yeah, I know you are. Yeah, of course, I'll be on the. And then I was like, what? Yes, crazy. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, something else I know you've been doing as well. You've been doing some courses on LinkedIn. How's that been going? And is that looks like it's quite a time consuming thing to do. And I know all of us have different time constraint issues for various different reasons. But yeah, how do you find that process? And have you got anything kind of coming up that you can share maybe?
Yeah, that's you're spot on there. Actually, it's a big time commitment, I find. So I've done 2 courses so far that have been published. And the way it works with LinkedIn is now and again, the LinkedIn Learning content managers. So LinkedIn Learning, owned by Microsoft, but they're really keeping their own identity. But yeah, the way it happens is content managers, now and again, they'll look for new instructors. This was another callback to Gregor, who'd created one course before. I'm nosy. Gregor, what was that like? Was it fun? How did you get on? So me and Gregor had a chat. I was like, oh, that sounds like it could be fun. So he got me in contact with one of their content managers who deals with Microsoft certification prep courses. And that's what Gregor had done before. So he'd done one of those. I reached out. They found what my strengths were. and also what courses were on their list of priorities as well. So we went through that. We found a natural fit. The first one I did was the Azure Data Platform, or DP900 Fundamentals. So that was split into 4 different courses to cover that. I did one of them. Gregor did 2 of them, and there was someone else who did another one. So there was 4 parts to that. So that was a short course for me. That was the published one was a half an hour deliverable for me, or I maybe had 2 or 3 hours of my material that was then, edited down to make that half an hour. And there was a fairly relaxed deadline for that one. So it wasn't too high pressure, and being a fundamentals, it was more the beginner level. So it's actually not too bad. Mostly slides, talking through concepts. So that first one was a great learning experience, something I really enjoyed. Now, the second course I did was probably the toughest Microsoft exam I've taken. This was the Power Platform Developer Associate, which is the PL400. And I actually found
that's a hard course.
It is like, even with the background with the pro code and things, that was a test for me. It really was. So that was another one that was a priority for them. And really, because there's so much involved in that, you go to Microsoft Learn, it might say 10 plus hours of reading or whatever it is. This was, in the end, it was like a kind of a 3-hour kind of overview of what was needed for that one. And that was a lot of fun, but there was a tight deadline, and it was a lot more intense because it was associate and it was fully on me. So I think that was probably maybe around 3 solid months of most of my spare time. So not much on blogging, presenting, podcasting. That was, if I've got the time, it has to be poured into the course. So it was good, but it really did feel like you've taken another job on because of the commitment that was required. So it was great fun. I'd recommend it to anyone. But I think you've made a good point, if what are your time constraints? Can you meet the deadline? How many hours a week can you commit to this? And just be realistic with yourself, and also your skill level, because that was full on as well. It's quite heavy.
I think that's a really good point you make about sort of like making sure that you understand your time commitments and what you can really commit to realistically, because when you do something like that, like if you're going to be a LinkedIn instructor, that's going to take so much time. And I know me and John have looked at other opportunities in the past with reviewing books. I did blog. I haven't blogged for a little while. I'm really struggling to get back onto that. And now the podcast it doesn't take as much time as it's used to, but it does still take a considerable amount of time. So that's such an important point there about making sure that you are keeping within what is a realistic expectation of your time commitments, that you have that downtime to be a human being,
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know you both got families, you've both got young kids, you've got other commitments. Some people might be carers or have a second or third job. There's so many things going off in life, or a hobby. We work with people in bands. They travel around and they drum in bands and do tours. So there's those things of, I've come to realize the last few months of, I want to focus my time on tech community activities while keeping that healthy work-life balance, or I'm now trying to work, to be honest, back towards a healthier work-life balance, but maybe keep the fun things for me. The podcast is one of those. Maybe doing videos in future will be another fun thing. But whether it's enough to maintain or renew an award, don't know. Don't really care as much, to be honest. It's more about what do I want to enjoy doing with my time, and good things will come of that. Whether that's getting an award or getting an opportunity to review or write a book or do something else. And that's kind of how I'm trying to reorganize my time at the moment.
And like MVP is not something it's not something you chase, right? It's kind of something that kind of happens naturally. Like I'm waiting to find out if I've got it at the beginning of March. My gut is telling me that probably I haven't, but that I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm okay with that if that does happen and it does go that way. Do you think? Have you got any kind of tips for anyone that maybe has been nominated, they haven't submitted yet, and that process and the kind of level of detail that you might need to go to get MVP?
Yeah, good questions there, and I've got my fingers crossed for you, John, because I think you do You both do lots of high impact work. You're both worthy of the award, in my opinion. And
I've not been asked.
You've not, Mike. Let's chat after this. Let's not mess around here.
No.
Yes. There's John like the devil on his shoulder there. But I think you both do brilliant work. I'm a fan of both of your blogs. I love your podcast, and there's other things that I know you both do as well. So I think you're both worthy of it. I know, John, when we had you on the podcast, me and Gregor jumped immediately after we hit stop on the record of, have you been nominated yet? Let's have a chat. And you had been at that time, as you say, waiting to hear back. I think one thing as well, little heads up, when I was nominated, the first time I had a review, I wasn't accepted for the award. And then I had some feedback, and then I had a few months to have another check-in. And second time round, I did get the award, luckily. So, it may not come immediately, but it's likely something going to happen for you. As you say, I like to think that if you do good things, I don't specifically aim for the award. I was very lucky to be nominated in the first place because the person who nominated me was off the back of a session explaining what the award was to me. It was after I delivered a presentation for their user group. So I actually didn't fully know what the award was because over my career, there's been a lot of non-Microsoft work as well. It's mostly been Microsoft, but I've done lots with Oracle, Java, plenty of other stacks. So I've not just been predominantly in the Microsoft world. It's been many other, stacks as well. I think one thing that I'd maybe suggest to people is, some people have the goal of aiming for the award, and that's great. If you've got goals and you want to aim for something, that's fine too. For me, I thought it'd be an award where if I do enough good things or things that help others or share enough knowledge, good things will come. As we say, sometimes that's an opportunity of, can you write this book or co-write this book or create a LinkedIn course? And one of the good things might be getting that award. Maybe for 1 year, maybe for several years, who knows? Or maybe it's a stepping stone to joining the mothership, who knows? And then you let go of the award. There's all these kind of paths you can go down. So I'd say, do good things. Good things will come, no matter what form they take or how long they take to come around. If someone has been nominated, someone did give me some really good advice, which I mentioned on a session I presented quite recently as a VRT and also at the ANS office, which was getting involved in community work or growing what you do. One of them, someone gave me advice when I'd been nominated. I'd asked another MVP's advice of saying, look, I'd just been nominated, tempted to ramp up a few activities to tip the odds in my favor a little bit. Things I want to be doing anyway, other speaking gigs, organizing events, things like this. Like I'm probably going to do it anyway, but I might just turn that volume up a bit just to help this award. I've got my sight set on this now. What do you think? And they give great advice, just saying, look, just don't overdo things. Do things you want to do. Back to what you were saying, Mike. Finding what your time allowance is every week. Don't do it just to get the award, because at the end of the day, it's just an award. They don't give you lots of money or do much else. It's just it's just a recognition at the end of the day.
And we've talked on this podcast before about people who are I'm not going to say that they're chasing the MVP award, but people who get burnt out through contributing to the community. And I think we've said it before, and we'll say it again: look after yourself first, put yourself first, and then you do your community work.
Yeah, spot on.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I've been very lucky. There's times when I know I've not kept that balance as healthy as it could be. I've not gone near burnout. I've not burned out. I've been very lucky, touch wood, so far. But I think towards the end of last year, I was getting some warning signs of this is a bit much. You're taking on a bit too much, or you're not giving it your best because you're rushing to get that blog in on the cadence that you want, or the user group, you're only prepping the day or two before because you've been busy. So then that was the warning sign of, you probably got too much on. Let's let go of a few things or slow the cadence down on a few things. And I feel much better for that now anyway. I'm still working on it, but I'm in a much better place myself.
Good. And talking about doing things for the community, how are things with the Scottish Power Platform user group? How long have you been involved?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for mentioning that. Actually, just this evening, we've got, which I know this won't be published today, but we've actually got a birthday party special in-person event in Perth in Scotland this evening. So this will be 6 till 9 this evening. And it's good because Charlie, who's the founder of the group, he's actually based on the South Coast. So he always travels up for the in-person events. Always great to see him. Stuart Baxter, who's actually living in Fife. So he's maybe within an hour, just under of Perth for this event. And me, I'm in the central belt of Scotland. So I'm just over an hour away from this event. So it's great when we all get together, see each other in person. It's going to be an interesting event. We've got 4 speakers tonight. When I joined, I wasn't there from the start, but Charlie and Stuart were with a couple of other people, and they started. It was February last year, so it's the 1-year anniversary. The birthday party tonight is actually, I think it was yesterday. Technically, was the actual first event that they had. Now, the way the user group works, we don't kind of have a typical home ground in the same office. We've been moving locations to give different in-person audiences a chance to attend them, and we alternate between virtual and in-person as well. So it's been really good. I joined June last year, so I think it was the week I was lucky enough to get the MVP award. It was almost like a day or two after I was asked to be part of the organisation team. So there was something else happening.
Timing and coincidence.
Well, who knows, eh? Yeah. And but I'd met the guys at the very first event in February, which was an in-person event in Edinburgh, in the Microsoft office in Edinburgh, which a nice office they've got there. So it was great to see them in person, join them on the team, maybe a few months after that, and been part of it ever since. So yeah, they're really great guys there. It's always great fun, those events.
Very nice. Yeah, we've had Stuart on the podcast. He's a great person. He also helped me out when I was wanting to find out more about what like a solution architect does, and yeah, we talked about that, and he featured in that blog post. So the bit that you've been waiting for, Mr. Atherton, of course, and it's gonna involve some high tech, high budget music. We have this section called Uncomfortable Corner.
Uncomfortable corner.
Top sound design, brilliant.
So good.
AI can't make that. AI can't do that.
No, it can't. No.
No, it definitely can't.
So, Keith, when was the last time you felt uncomfortable, whether that's in or out of work? And could you kind of explain how you felt, how you managed it, what you kind of learned from it?
Yeah, it took me a while to come up with an idea on this because it's such a great question. And it's great to talk about uncomfortable things, difficult things. And I love taking on, the reason I started speaking in the first place was I saw someone do it really well. They inspired me. And I thought, I don't know if I'm comfortable speaking to a big group of strangers in a room where they're all technically smart and might challenge me on things and or heckle me or whatever else. But then I found that I really enjoyed it, which is why I do so much tech community work, as I'm sure many of you guys and others do as well. So yeah, giving this a lot of thought, I think one of the toughest things, it's not the last thing, but it's something in fairly recent times which has been being quite adaptable, as I'm sure you guys are too. Again, jumping between different tech stacks. Mike, I know your pro code skills. John, I mean, you're mastering Canvas apps these days. You're taking it all on here.
He's a wizard.
Absolutely. So for me, being quite adaptable, sometimes I do see many projects. This was fairly recent times. Lots of projects come my way because I've got capability of helping at least a beginner to a medium, sometimes advanced way. So there had been a couple of occasions when the workload was beyond my capacity at that time. First I was a little busy, then completely full. Then when I sat down and worked out the hours per week, I'm like, that's like 8 days a week here. I don't think I can, I know I can't keep up with this. What am I going to do? But instead of seeing the warning signs, it was just a case of, well, I want to be helpful. I want to help people, coming from an authentic place of, I'm sure I can squeeze this in here or take that one there. Same with the community work, taking on too much, getting too busy with it. So when it became the day job workload, I was like, okay, I had to take a moment when I wasn't busy to actually stand back and realize, let me just add up these hours and realize, yeah, I can't do that. That's not possible. That's too much. But there was still the thing inside me of, no, I want to do well. I want to not let anyone down. I want to work really hard and help people. But the mature thing was to actually speak up about it. See the line manager and just say, look, I really want to help on this, but I don't have time for this one until week 3, week 4.
Yeah.
And then kind of plan out the time and see what was achievable. What happens if you hit a technical roadblock and it doubles the time or triples the time it takes to do that task? So number one for me was actually just speaking, recognizing it first was probably number one, taking that step back to realize that, review my workload, what's feasible. There's no breathing space in this. And then part 2 was speaking up to the line manager and just saying, look, I really want to work on all this stuff. I think there's a bit too much just for me at the moment. What can we do about it? It's tempting to offer the solution of, right, give Steve that, give Bill this, blah, blah, blah. But it's really just to work with them and see, well, is it all me over a longer period of time? Does it need to be given out because there's deadlines and things? So I think that's probably been the toughest challenge in recent memory.
And delegation is really important, isn't it? Because normally when you're working at, say, like a Microsoft partner, you're working as part of a team, and you're all striving for that end goal. And actually, have you ever found difficulty with delegating tasks? Do you sort of feel like I have in the past where I've not now, but before I've kind of felt like, well, if I delegate that, I'm putting that on someone else and I'm inconveniencing them. Have you ever felt the same?
Exactly that. There's been times in the past, just as you say, it's like, well, I'm passing this to them. They might already be as busy as me. I don't know their workload just now, so I need to check with them as well. What skills are in their wheelhouse? Some of us, Mike, your pro code skills are brilliant. So, it might be, well, this might take Mike an hour with JavaScript, but you might pass it to someone called Sarah. I've just made someone up. She's fairly beginner with it. It might take her, 4 hours. Might be a half day. So considering velocity sometimes is also part of the equation. But yeah, as you say, wanting to, well, this looks like a fun, interesting thing as well. This might be another part of the factor of, part of the way up. So yeah, I struggled more so in the past, definitely a few years ago. These days, not as much, luckily, but there are still some times of, well, can I fit this in? Can I? So it's just being aware of that. Is it realistic? Can I do it? Or speaking up as early as possible as well is good.
Yeah, it's also difficult when you enjoy it as well. So you enjoy the technical challenge. You enjoy, working with different people, etc. So there's that whole other bit to it as well that is kind of in the background. That this is I would like to do that, but it's going to have to wait.
Yeah, we had a good chat about that recently, didn't we, John? Along those lines of, I really want to solve this. I don't want to let go of it just yet because I'm so close. I could pass it on to someone else, or maybe within the next short period of time, I could just nail this. I could just get this finished. So sometimes it's that in between of, oh, well, I'm 90% there. I had that on a project recently. It was a Canvas app. I did 80% of it, and I just could not find the time to finish that thing off. Someone stepped in. It was delegated. They did a great job and finished it. And I was like, but it's just that. It's just this bit. I just need half a day. I couldn't get half a day. So yeah, in the end, that was the right way of dealing with it.
Yeah. Nice one. Well, thank you very much, Keith, for being on the podcast. That's kind of all we've got time for today. And in the interests of in-laws, cats and children who have also just arrived, I think it's probably a great time to wrap up. So you can find Keith on LinkedIn and on X as well. And also on the on Air in the Cloud podcast as well. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. Any other resources will also be in the show notes as well. Music today was provided by King Like Fit. You can find his music on Spotify, link of which you can also find in the episode show notes. Also, apart from Uncomfortable Corner, which Mike made, any other music that we've used will also be in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And we'd also really, really appreciate it if you could give us a follow on LinkedIn. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a review on your chosen podcast platform. Thank you very much. This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, John. Bye. Keith Atherton. Say goodbye, Keith.
Goodbye, Keith. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
And we've definitely done this round the wrong way. And Mike, see you later, Mike.
Yeah, I'm really confused as to why you've got it so wrong, seeing as it's been written correctly in the show notes.
I think I read the words Mike Gowland and thought, well, that's
He's gone off
not
piste.
me.
What's
So,
happening?
off piste.
This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, John.
See you later.
Keith Atherton. Say goodbye, Keith.
Goodbye, Keith.
And I'm Mike Gowland. We'll see you in the next episode. I think what we need is a Sprint Zero and On Air in the Cloud collab.
Yes, let's do
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Let's
Good
do it.
idea. Yeah.
I think we should get all of us on and do an episode.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Very good.
100%. 100%. All five
Yeah.
of us. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too, John. Bye.
Take care, all. Thanks.
Warning. The following scenes may contain references to power pages and portals which some listeners may find disturbing. Especially if you've struggled with poor training in the past.
Hey all, Franco Musso here again. Quick update on that hostage situation. Hopefully the smell isn't coming across the airwaves. I haven't let the guys use the bathroom yet, so the joke's definitely on me. Anyway, big announcement. I'm finally releasing my online Power Pages course. This has been 5 years in the making. It's tried and tested on citizen devs and portal makers all around the world. It's the course I wish existed when I was getting started. It's practical, it's hands-on, and it's project-based, so you're not wondering how the heck this would apply to the real world. I've built in battle-tested lessons I've learned from tens of successful portal projects across various industries, budgets, and geographies, and I've formulated the most efficient route from zero to heroic launch. The tools and techniques I've chosen to show you are all based on what adds the most value to you, the learner, and to your customers, all in the most compressed timeline possible. Think 80-20, focusing on the techniques that punch above their weight and deliver the majority of results. You'll get video lessons, a repeatable framework, and some super helpful worksheets. Visit francomusso.com/power-pages-course and register your interest. Disclaimer, this course isn't for you if you prefer hours of slides, theory, and little to no action. You can now take your fingers out of your ears and enjoy the awesome that is Sprint Zero.